Hello, everybody, and welcome back to VGR. The week leading up to E3 is full of speculations, leaks, rumors, predictions, and we plan to feed into that today. I'm joined by my usual co-host, Matt Morgans.
Hello.
I'm Jacob Smith, and today we will each be presenting our top 5 E3 predictions. The things we most want to see, the things we most think are most likely to see, and all the things that make this whole week and weekend so spectacular. So Matt, why don't you kick us off with your number 5?
Well, my number 5 is it's one of the smaller titles that I think we'll see at E3, but it's one of the ones I'm most excited for since they only just announced it, and that is Baldurs Gate 3.
Of course.
I mean, the Baldurs Gate series hasn't had a new title in almost 20 years. You know, they released the enhanced edition and so forth, the kind of remasters, but they haven't actually had a new game. Exactly. The series has not actually continued for almost 20 years. And to kind of make things even better, the game's being developed by Levine Studios, the studio that made Divinity, Original Sin, and Original Sin 2, which, particularly the second one, a lot of reviewers have called one of the best RPGs ever made.
Absolutely.
And certainly with the design of that game, I think they're a perfect choice to develop Baldur's Gate 3.
I can think of no one better.
Yeah, absolutely. So as far as predictions go, I think we're probably not going to see any live gameplay. I think they've only just announced it, so we probably won't be seeing anything live, but we might get to see some pre-recorded gameplay, maybe in the context of a trailer. We'll probably get at least one new trailer in general. So far they've only released the announcement trailer, and that was all pre-rendered footage. So yeah, maybe we get to see some kind of glimpses of early gameplay in the context of a trailer, or at least some more information about when we can expect the game to be out.
Awesome. For my number 5, I've got one that is on a lot of people's list, certainly on my list, and that is that Animal Crossing Switch will get a release date. It might just be wishful thinking, but I think this is the perfect time for Nintendo to do it. I could see a November 2019 release date, and I could also see a 2020 release date, the perfect way to kind of help the Switch ring in its 3rd year of life. If Nintendo does indeed plan to buy into the rumors and unveil one, maybe 2 new versions of the Switch itself, I think that would be the perfect time to introduce a new Animal Crossing alongside those versions, help drive up the hype for both announcements.
Definitely.
With nothing but our tease of Tom Nook back in September 2018, fans have been clamoring for more, so I think this is the perfect time for Nintendo to give us what we want. Matt, you're number 4.
Right, so number 4, we're getting into slightly bigger titles now. I think number 4 is that we are actually going to see gameplay for Control, which is Remedy's upcoming new game. We've seen a little bit of this. They've kind of teased gameplay coming at E3, but I think more than that, we're also going to get a confirmed release date, not just release window, actual release date. We know the game is supposed to be coming 2019, but they haven't confirmed either a month or a date yet. But with just 6 months really left after E3, I think that's close enough that they're going to be confident enough to release a specific date. I mean, the delays can still happen, but
of course,
usually if a game's going to release within the same year as the E3 it's being shown at, normally the studios do feel confident enough to give a specific date rather than just a month.
Yeah, absolutely, and from what we've seen of the game, it looks pretty far in development. So I don't think that's far off, especially given Remedy's track record for creating content that's pretty far out there, and from what we've seen, and it's pretty on track from what we know from them.
Yeah, I think if we do see gameplay, they're probably going to focus on the gameplay mechanics that we know are going to be the focus, because Remedy in general has a bit of a reputation for unusual approaches to gameplay mechanics, And
Absolutely.
from what we've seen of Control, they definitely seem to be leaning in that direction. So, yes, be very interested to see what they have to show.
Absolutely. For my number 4, I've got something that we, again, already had a kind of teaser for, which is Dragon Age 4. I think we will see it in the form of a full-fledged trailer this year at E3. I think
Yeah,
this would be
we
the
can
perfect
certainly
time
hope.
Yeah, right, and I think this would be the perfect time to do it. I think this would be a time for BioWare to show that they do have something in the works instead of what we've seen from reports like Jason Schreier's deep dive on Anthem and subsequently Dragon Age 4. I think this is their perfect time to rebound and say, look, we've got something concrete, it's coming to you, and it's out of this sort of rumored development hell that we've been hearing about.
They certainly need a win after Anthem.
Mm-hmm.
So, it would be a good way to kind of win back the audience somewhat.
Absolutely, and we know it's already been in development, and while development has been tumultuous, it's been some time since Inquisition came out, so I think we might actually see a potential release year. Certainly not 2020. Crossed. I think if we see a release year, it'll be 2021.
Yeah,
if
I think that's...
we see a release year.
A big if.
Yeah, I definitely think so. And Matt, you're number 3, getting in the middle of the list.
So number 3 is we already know we're going to see a lot about Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. We know guaranteed that they will be doing a gameplay reveal. In fact, very soon they'll be doing that gameplay reveal right at the start of E3. And we already have a release date for the game. It's going to be coming out on the 15th of November. So there's not a whole lot left to predict about Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. But in terms of smaller details, I'd definitely like to see them confirm maybe something like an average game length, because I know a lot of people will be interested to know exactly how long this game is going to take to play through, especially with its focus on the single-player story experience.
Absolutely.
I'd also like to see them show us more details about the supporting cast in the game, because so far we haven't seen too much about the game's cast.
Yeah, only the protagonist, really. And
indeed.
Minor details on him at best.
And beyond that, I think maybe also a confirmation as to whether this game actually is considered canonical within the current Star Wars universe. I mean, I'd anticipate that it probably is, but they may do sort of something similar to what they did with Battlefront 2, where they sort of acknowledge that it's canon, but they don't really attach it to any other part of the universe. You know, they tell a self-contained story that doesn't necessarily intrude on any other parts of that universe.
Yeah, definitely. I really hope it's canon. They've made a lot of really cool things canonical in the past that aren't just the movies, so I think it's likely that it will be canon. Especially because they've kind of Disney has entrusted EA with this license, with this IP for a reason.
Yes.
And I think it's a time period that has not been thoroughly explored really at all in the Star Wars universe, and I think Star Wars fans like myself would really love to see it fleshed out, because right after Order 66, all Jedi are assassinated. I think that's a really interesting time period, especially to experiment with a young Jedi.
What about you? You're number 3.
My number 3, I really want to shout out pre-E3 leaks because I was going to talk about the George R.R. Martin and From Software rumor, but that is no longer a rumor. It has been confirmed, as you can see, but my new number 3 is that we will finally get a glimpse at Fable 4. This is kind of the worst kept secret in gaming right now. As we know, Playground Games has pretty much taken over this project, or some mysterious open world RPG owned by Microsoft. It's Fable 4. And with Lionhead Studios now no more, and clearly not a part of the Fable franchise, it would be a good time for Playground to show their chops. I think we will get no more than a title card, maybe a release year, but even then it's tentative. I think a title card will be enough to drum up fans' interest for them to potentially roll out trailers later in the year.
Definitely. Maybe something at the Game Awards.
Yeah, I think that would be the perfect time to announce a trailer, to release a trailer, especially because that was a pretty prevalent standard set at the last Game Awards, where we saw cool things like Outer Worlds and
Absolutely.
Marvel Ultimate Alliance. Like, the precedent for unveiling big trailers is there. So I think no release date yet on Fable 4. At the very minimal, I think we'll get an announcement, a title card, some juicy morsel that we can hang on to, because it has been so long since Fable 3. Matt, you're number 2. We're getting to the top of the list.
Yep, we are indeed. And for my number 2, we're going with Borderlands 3. Now, we
Of
already know
course.
we're going to see a ton about Borderlands 3 at E3. It's definitely going to be one of the larger titles. So as much as they've already managed to release a ton of information before they've even gotten to E3.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we already have information on release and things like that, but one thing we really haven't seen, which I'm going to predict that we will see at E3, is a dedicated story trailer, or at least a trailer focusing a lot more on character and dialogue. Because so far what we've seen of the trailers and gameplay footage for Borderlands 3, it's really been focused on the gameplay. We haven't really seen much at all about the game's characters or the game's dialogue, which is such a key part of the Borderlands series. The sort of humorous and comical dialogue and character design is such a core part of those games. But the trailers so far have been pretty light on dialogue, so my guess is that they've been saving it for E3.
I think that's the perfect time to unveil it, and I don't think it's that too far off to assume that Claptrap will introduce said trailer, because, like you said, we haven't heard a lot from the characters. We haven't heard a lot from him. So.
I don't know if they're gonna risk that, because of course Claptrap has a new voice actor, and that might prove to be a bit of a controversial decision. So I'm wondering if maybe they'll be keeping Claptrap maybe sort of to the back of any potential trailers. And be focusing on characters who are also familiar, maybe like the original game's Vault Hunters, for example, who have been in all the games throughout.
Okay, nice. I like the kind of the. I'm not sure about this one. Let us know in the comments down below what you think. Will Claptrap be featured in the inevitable Borderlands 3 reveal at E3 this year? I'm genuinely curious.
Yeah.
Now I'm not so sure. But for my number 2, I know this is going to disappoint some people. It disappointed myself writing it out. But I think there will be no Splinter Cell announcement this year at E3.
Yeah.
That's not to say there's not something in the works, because, again, murmurs have been abound for years from different sources, developers, former developers. There's something there, but it's not here yet. I think Ubisoft is much more likely to focus on the previously leaked Watch Dogs Legion set in London. Really interesting premise, and I think they're going to hone in on that for most of their conference.
Definitely.
I think an announcement as big as Splinter Cell has to be saved for a year where they don't have any other big titles really announced for E3. I think we got to wait another year, maybe 2, for Splinter Cell. It's coming, but again, not this year. In tandem with that, I also don't think we'll be seeing Assassin's Creed. I think that's probably later this year, and then slated for an early 2020 release, or maybe just next year's conference, because that makes a lot more sense lining up with their release schedules.
Maybe more DLC for the current one, but yeah, I'd agree. Nothing about the next one.
Yeah, but primarily no Splinter Cell. I'm so sorry. I broke my own heart writing this. And Matt, your hotly anticipated number 1. What is it? Lay it on me.
Nobody will be surprised to learn that it is Cyberpunk 2077, which is definitely going to be, if not the headline, one of the absolute top headlines of this E3. We already know they're going to be showing live gameplay. They're going to be doing multiple gameplay demonstrations, both behind closed doors and to the public. So that's not really a secret. The thing that, of course, everybody is wondering about is the release date.
Of course.
And so for my prediction with Cyberpunk, I'm going to predict that we do get a release window, and it's going to be spring 2020. Which sort of the latter half of the period that people have been sort of rumouring that the game's going to come out in, that Q4 2019 bracket. We recently had the sort of rumoured potential confirmation from Jason Schreier and others that the game is going to be pushed into 2020 and was originally intended to come out late 2019.
Yeah.
Which really lines up with the rumours that have been around for quite some time. So yeah, I think confirmation that it's coming out in spring 2020. Maybe we get a release month, maybe we get a release date, but I think it's more likely we'll just get a release season, and then we'll get a confirmed release date. Maybe around the Game Awards, somewhere around then, like towards the end of 2019.
Yeah.
Spring 2020 is almost a full year away. It's, sort of a 9-month period. I don't think they're going to be jumping to confirm a date. CD Projekt Red's been pretty cagey about pinning that down.
Yeah, I'm certainly inclined to agree with that 100%. And I think, if they do announce a release window, it gives them the latter half of the year to kind of flesh out some more content, some little details, kind of drip feed us.
Which is exactly what they did after last year's E3.
Yeah, so I think, like you said, they're really smart and rolling out their content. They are genius marketers, and they will not announce anything before they are 100% sure that they are ready for it.
And
I think
fact,
2020 release window is perfect, yeah.
Yeah, and to tie into that, as a kind of added prediction, I don't think we're going to hear anything about the second game that they're working on, because we know they're working on something else, some other AAA RPG, which is coming out within the next few years. Wasn't it? I think the confirmation was that it was coming out by 2021, right?
Yes, indeed. I believe so.
So it's definitely already in development, whatever it is. But I suspect we're not going to hear anything about it. Maybe at most they confirm that they do have another game in development, but I don't think they're going to name it, and I don't think they're going to reveal what it is, because I think they're going to be focusing entirely on hype for Cyberpunk.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely fair, and I think you're 100% on the nose. Big year for them, and a big year for those predictions. And my personal number one, rounding out my list, my boldest prediction, kind of based on a gut feeling more than anything, honestly. But I think Ken Levine Studio, Ghost Story Games, will make an appearance. Ken Levine, formerly of Irrational Games, kind of dissolved the studio and reformed it into Ghost Story Games back in 2017. He did a talk at GDC back in 2014 through Ghost Story, so it's clear that at least the infancy of the studio has been around for quite some time. They did confirm back then, of course, that they are working on a game that talk had been influencing a game that they'd started working on around 2017, and I think 2 years is the perfect amount of time for them to give us a morsel.
Absolutely.
Maybe a title card, maybe a teaser trailer, nothing more, nothing too serious, probably not until E3 2020, 2021, until we get something concrete. But I think this is the perfect time to break their silence.
I think so, especially with some really notable titles already confirmed that are not going to be at E3 this year. I think compared to last year, it's going to be a slightly less crowded E3 when it comes to big AAA titles. There's still going to be plenty, and it's still going to be crowded for sure, but slightly less so perhaps than 2018. We already know PlayStation is giving it a miss this time around, which means a lot of big PlayStation-only games are not going to be there. The Last of Us 2, Ghost of Tsushima. We're probably not going to see much at all about Death Stranding. Maybe we get some simultaneous announcements from Sony outside of E3, but at the same time. But, mainly we're not going to see anything from those. And of course, there's a few other big names that have already said they're not going to be there. Todd Howard said that neither Elder Scrolls 6 nor Starfield are going to be at E3 this year, which is a bit disappointing to fans, I'm sure. I think it's going to be something of a muted E3 this year for Bethesda, focused mainly on Fallout 76 DLC, maybe more content for Elder Scrolls Blades, probably more stuff for Elder Scrolls Online, although obviously that's coming from ZeniMax, but it'll be wrapped up in the Bethesda conference.
Absolutely.
And other than that, I suspect Bethesda will probably be focusing on the other studios that Bethesda's publishing arm owns. So we'll probably see more about the upcoming Wolfenstein game, We'll see more about Doom for sure. And maybe we'll see more content for something like Prey, or maybe something new coming out of those studios. But yeah, it looks like unfortunately we won't be seeing anything about Elder Scrolls or Starfield. And then beyond
Some
that,
big names.
Beyond that, we're also, unfortunately, we're apparently not going to see anything about Skull and Bones, which I know a lot of people are excited to see. But it looks like that's maybe been stuck in development somewhat, and they're not ready to show anything this E3. And I think it was Rocksteady as well. They are currently working on some unannounced game, but they've said it's not going to be at E3.
Although, I mean, as I kind of talked to you about before, if they were going to announce something big at E3, isn't that exactly what they'd say?
Might be a little conspiratorial, but maybe.
Maybe. But hey, let's not rule it out. Thank you guys so much for joining us on our E3 predictions roundup. This is our kind of first foray into something like this, and we've had a blast doing it with you guys. Please let us know your predictions and the viability of our predictions in the comments down below. We want to hear what you think as we lead up into this weekend of pure hype. Once again, I've been Jacob Smith.
And I'm Matt Morkins.
And thank you for joining us today.